Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and today's project is going to be a bit of a follow-up to my last couple of videos dealing with the motorized Spindexer. What I'm going to do is make an offset plate to work on the surface grinder. If you can, imagine this right here as being the mag chuck on the surface grinder. This is the same size, a 6x12. I'm going to turn it long ways. When I set this up there, there's not enough, as you can see, it can be tail heavy there. The mag chuck will hold it some, but the travel, many people mistakenly call this travel on the surface grinder the y-axis, confusing it with the y-axis on a mill, but that's actually the z-axis on the surface grinder. When you're feeding towards or away from the spindle, that is the z-axis. But the travel on the z-axis on the surface grinder is the same as the width of the mag chuck. It will get just off the back and just off the front. So setting something like this up there doesn't give you a whole lot of working room down here for the length of the piece. Again, imagine the mag chuck sitting there. We're going to take this piece of plate here. This is some A36 plate. It's 6 inches by 12 inches, 3/4 of an inch thick. We're going to make it so it will set on the mag chuck running this way. This will hold it down. The mag over here will hold it down. Then this can set out here, and I've even got room to put a tailstock down here. If I've got a long piece I need to turn on the OD. So what I want to do is take this piece of material. This is rough cut, this is flame cut all the way around, which probably means it's going to be very hard. But I want to put this in the mill and drill 5 holes in it, 4 corners and the center. Then I'm going to take the vise off of the mill, and under each one of those holes put these little standoffs. These are all, I've got 5 of these. They're all ground to be the exact same height. And I'm going to set these through those holes. That'll be set it on the mill, and I'll be able to go all the way around, and that will make this piece as square as the XY axis on my mill are. It will be all in one setup, so after I get the holes drilled, I'm going to use the vise to get the holes drilled. But after that, I'll take the vise off. Then I'll be able to go all the way around with it set in one setup again. So that way everything will be square. And at the same time I've got it set up then I'm going to put 2 grooves along here. Those grooves will correspond with a 2 3/4 inch center to center on these mounting holes. So let's get set up on the mill now to drill the 5 holes. As you can see, I put my vise jaws on the outside so I can clamp this down. Got a spacer block, 1, 2, 3 block on here just to keep the center of this material over the opening in the vise under here. I've got a jack under each end with it reasonable tight. The distance between these holes corresponds to the distance between the T-slots in my mill table. And of course, this one in the center material will be centered between those 2. And again, these 5 holes is just for the purpose of holding this plate down on the mill so that I can in one setup, turn the outside, dress up this outside surface all the way around, and put some slots in here for the Spindexer to slide in and out on and be tightened down on. So I'm set up on the first hole now. Let's see, I think I'll slow down a little bit. Now, as I said, this is A36. Shouldn't be very hard material. However, it is flame cut around the edges, and I expect the edges to be somewhat hard when we go to milling that. But hopefully it won't be too hard drilling. And I'm going to go ahead and start with a 3/8 drill. I believe it. If it didn't harden it on into there, this 3/8 drill should go without a pilot hole. And I think I'm going to use my flood coolant just to help keep this cool and lubed. All right, I've got 0 set. Should be 4.97 inches to the next hole. Well, that's what my centers. I'm sure that's some metric value. I'm going to see if I can drill that without using the center drill to begin with. All right, I've got the roughing end mill in now, and I'm going to come down. This might just barely scrape my my offsets down here, but that'll be all right if it does. So we're going to lock down right there, and we're going to come in till we just touch. Again, I have no idea how hard this is going to be. We'll come out here to the end. I'm going to set that as 0 on my Y. And I'm just going to start up with 5 thousandths and see if that'll clean that up. I'm probably going to use cutting oil on this instead of trying to use the flood coolant. As close to the edge as it is, I expect most of the flood coolant would not go down in the T-slots and be down on the table. So let's try this. After I get a clean cut all the way around with the roughing end mill, I'll come back with a finishing end mill and clean it up. That's not quite cleaning it up there, but I don't know but what there may be some high spots down here. So I'm just going to run this mild cut to begin with. I can go a little faster. cleaned up everywhere except a little spot right through there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put the finish end mill in. I'll let this power feed back to the other end without advancing the table over. All right, we're going to put the finishing end mill in there, advance about 10 thousandths, and make a conventional mill cut. All right, so we're going to come in about 10 thousandths on the Y. All right, now I'm going to step in about 2 thousandths and incline mill just to get a good finish cut on for the end. Okay, I'm very pleased with that edge, and it turns out it wasn't all that hard. On that pass that time, I actually had the end mill probably hanging out too far, and I was getting a little bit of resignation on that. So now I'm going to step over. I think I'll go ahead and put the roughing end mill back in. That seemed to work good to get that hard edge, a hardened edge. It really wasn't that hard. Being A36 probably doesn't have that much carbon in it anyhow. I want to be sure I'm clearing my nuts with the spindle there. And that's not going to clear, so I'm going to have to drop that end mill down just a little bit. Okay, I had to stop the video for a second. One day I'm going to learn to quit wiping my thumb across an edge like that. Got a splinter in there, piece of swarf in there, so I had to stop long enough to get that out. This end is definitely not square. So it's going to take several passes. All right, I'm going to get the finishing end mill in there, and then we'll clean up pass on this first end. All right, I've got the finishing end mill in there now. I'm going to step over. Let's see, that's X. Let's step over about 15 thousandths. All right, now again, we're going to step over about 2 thousandths and climb mill. I'm not going to wipe it with my thumb this time. It's a very good surface on there. Let's. All right, I had a little roll right here on this front edge. What I want to do now, like I say, doing this all in one setting is going to make it as square as my mill's X to Y axis is. And that looks good. I'm going to do the back surface back here and the other end. I'll do those off camera, then I'll bring you back when we get ready to put the slots in here for the Spindexer. Okay, all four sides of our workpiece now have good clean edges and they're square to each other. So now let's find the center. All right, so there's the center on the Y, and our two grooves we need in here, tracks, are 2.75 inches apart. So half of that is 1.375. All right, and I took this out of the center here and just replaced it with a bolt to go into the T-nut. I did that so that these grooves are going to come up about 6 inches, and I didn't want to run into that bolt that was up there. We're going to make a groove in there, and then we're going to put a counter bore, if you will, slot in there, so that the bolt head's set flush. And once it's turned over, this will go up through the bottom, be countersunk, and then the Spindexer will set on the top. Now we need to find this edge over here as well. And the probe is 200 thousandths, so we'll come over 100 thousandths and reset our zero. I want to start this at 1 inch in. So there's 1 inch in. That's going to be our zero. That's where everything is going to start from for these slots or grooves. And to just give a little relief for the, instead of trying to plunge the end mills through this, which would work, what I'm going to do though is drill a hole at each end of our two slots. All right, and as I said, I want to go 6 inches for the length of the slot, 6 inches from this hole. That will actually allow the Spindexer to slide up over the mag chuck some. As I said, on the Y, 2.75 is the gap between the holes that's in the Spindexer already. All right, now I'm going to get changed over to the roughing end mill. I'm going to use it again on this, and it won't need a good finish in there, but I'll rough out both of these and then we'll come back for the countersink track. All right, I'm going to zero out the Z-axis now. All right, lock the Y down, release the X, and I'm going to come down. I'm going to start with 50 thousandths just to see how that does. This roughing end mill should be able to take plenty more than that. But tell you what, let's go back and try 100 thousandths. and we'll get some coolant on this. All right, we'll come down another 100 thousandths. And I'm just going to continue this process until I get this first one cut. Then I'll move over and get the second one. I'll bring you back when we get ready to make the countersink for the head on the bolts. All right, I've got one of the slots milled out for the 3/8. And it's getting a little late in the day. And I want to, before I move over and do the other one, I want to go ahead and see if I can get the counter bore for the 9/16. The only 9/16 end mills I've got are these cheap Chinese ones, and I'm not sure how they're going to do plunging. But I'm going to try this one. If that doesn't work, I got a brand new Niagara 1/2 inch cobalt, and I can cut with it and then step over a little bit on each side. But we're going to try this first. We want to go down 1/4 inch, 250 thousandths. So I'm going to see how the plunge works on this. All right, there's 0. Let's keep it cool. It looks like it might want to do it. All right, there's the 250 thousandths. Let's start out with taking, I don't know, we'll try 50 thousandths depth and go the length of it and see how that does. All right, I believe we can get a little more than that. Let's try 75. All right, I'm going to go ahead and plunge the 250 on this end. And we've done 75, so let's do another 75. That'll be, of course, 150. All right, I'm just going to continue this cut until I get down to the bottom of that, and then we'll test the bolt. All right, I got that first slot finished through here. It needs a little deburring inside there. When I get it off the mill, I'll get it over there on the bench and clean that out with a round file. Right at the end, definitely needs some filing. All right. As I said earlier, it's getting kind of late in the day. I'm going to park this at 0, 0 over here. So when I come back in the morning, I can pick right up where I left off and do the same thing over there. Now, of course, if you haven't figured it out yet or hadn't thought about it, this is all going on the surface grinder. After I get these slots done, I'm going to mag chuck it down, surface grind the entire surface, flip it over, do the same thing. So I'll bring you back when I get this other slot finished. All right, both of the bolt slots have been milled in the offset plate, and I'm over here at the surface grinder now. Got it on there, and it is, within 100 thousandths of being the same size as the mag chuck. So it's going to push the mag chuck to its limit as far as direction of travel. I have determined there's let me back this off just a little. I thought I was noticing over there on the mill, but I've determined that there is a bit of a hump on this side, just a minor warp in the whole thing. As I said, this was flame cut to begin with, so I'm sure that came from that. If I turn this over, I had just a little bit of a pivot on there, so I'm probably hitting on the 4 corners. But I'm going to surface grind this down, get it flat on this side, flip it over, and get it flat, get it resurfaced on the other side as well. This is going to be a very long process, pretty much equivalent to regrinding your chuck itself. So this is going to take a little while. I'll run a few passes over it. I had already milled it or ground into a little ways into this, but as you'll be able to see in a moment, it will be hitting in the middle along the center here and not the edges. Probably, I'm expecting as much as 30 thousandths difference there. All right, I'm going to continue this process. As I say, I've probably got, I don't know, maybe even as much as 50 thousandths, 30 to 50 thousandths to take out of this middle before we clean up. But I'll clean that up all the way and show that to you, and then we'll flip it over and do the other side. Okay, I'm making my finishing passes on this side now. This is still a thousandth depth cut. All right, it took 25 thousandths to get down to that sharp edge right there. I'll learn one day. I'm gonna make one more cleanup pass now. There's a few little freckles right here on this end down here, but they're just where it was pitted a little heavy at that end, but the surface is smooth. So I'm gonna go down 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths and make one more finish up pass on this. I'm stepping over 50 thousandths at a time. All right, so now I'm just going to take a spark out pass back to the other side. All right, I think this side right here looks considerably better than the other side. So I'm going to get a fresh facing on the wheel now, get it dressed good, flip it over, and do the other side, and I'll bring you back when we get that about finished. Okay, just about finished with the opposite side now, which will actually be the top side. We're going to take our final 4 tenths pass and clean this up. Okay, I got my imitation Fitbit on, and of course it counts the strides, counts your distance based on movement of the left arm, and it says I've done 12,322 steps, which is 1.25 miles, and other than walk to the house and back a couple of times since I've been out here this morning, all I've done is walk around the shop a couple of times. So it's been a lot of action with the left hand here. I'm gonna get the surface grinder cleaned up a little bit, get this turned around. I've got to put the fence back on the mag chuck, and then I'll bring you back and we'll do a little recap on this. Got the plate pretty much deburred now. There's still got a couple of sharp edges on this last surface that I may need to knock off a little bit. But I've got it mounted on a mag chuck now, got the chuck engaged. And I would say I'm putting at least 75 to 100 pounds of pressure down on this. It's hanging over. And it is not breaking loose from the chuck. Got plenty of surface here for the mag to hold on to. Now if we take our Spindexer that we motorized in previous videos, set that up here, and the bolts that I'm using to go through here, I carried these over to the to the lathe, and just thin this head up just a little bit, just to be absolutely certain that they will clear and be able to slide up onto the mag chuck if I need to get in that close. All right. Again, what those slots are for, now I can slide this in. All right, there we go. I had one of them a little too tight. I can slide that in and out as I need to, whatever the length of the workpiece is. Let me put my hands on my square. And from the video where we motorized this Spindexer, I pointed out that I had surface ground the back of this and both sides to be square, perpendicular, and parallel with this face that was a machine surface. So I can take get it to length, and I can tighten down like that, and for 99% of anything I'll be doing, that'll be plenty square. If I need to get it dead nuts on, of course I can put an indicator on here and run it up and down and tap this back and forth. But as long as I got this plate that we were very particular about getting it square, as long as I got it against this stop back here, which is square with the wheel, and then this square with that, like I say, 99% of the time, that should be plenty sufficient. I'm going to take this back off, set something else up on here, and show you that. Another recent acquisition here in the 10 barn has been this 6-inch sign plate. And I think most of the time, if I'm using a sign plate on the mag chuck, in addition to the Spindexer, there may be enough surface over here that I won't need this plate. But should I need this plate, it can set right on there, be clamped down. I'm obviously not going to try to drill holes in this, but could be clamped down into place there. And then I'll need to drill a couple of holes in the Spindexer base to match the 1/4-20 hole pattern that's in here. But that would allow me to set this, and I have checked the height for my wheel, and it would allow probably a 5 to 6 inch piece out here. Of course, I would never put anything extended out that far. But I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this. Stay tuned to the channel, because one of the next projects coming up in the near future will be on the back of this plate back here. Let me set this out of the way again. On the back of this plate that we just made, I want to put a tailstock that height-wise will have a pointer to match up with the height of the Spindexer, and that way this can be used to do OD grinds between centers. So hope you got a little bit out of this video. It was a good project, a lot of grinding, some setup work. And if you got any doubts at all or any questions about what am I going to do with these 5 holes I drilled to hold it on the mill, I'm not going to do a thing in the world about them. They don't hurt a thing. They're fine right there just like they are. So take care. and I'll see you in the next video.